We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It's Sunday. We're into the weekend, things slowing down a little bit. Still plenty to talk about. And on this show, it's going to be just me again. We've got some emails. We'll talk about other stuff, but no guest today. And we'll get through it somehow. I've said before, I really enjoy having the guests because I think it makes it more interesting, the show. I think it makes it more entertaining and more informative. But I started out doing it alone. I will do plenty more upcoming on my own. I still think I have to do that to a certain extent, and I'm happy to do it. People say, "How can you do all those TikToks and then do a podcast every night?" Well, I'll be honest with you. In my last job on the radio, I was a traffic reporter, and I worked two shifts from 6 to 9 and 3:30 to 7 every day. And I did a traffic update that was anywhere from a minute to 2 minutes on traffic every 10 minutes of each of those hours I was working. So this ain't shit. This ain't shit. This isn't hard. This is like getting warmed up for what I would normally do. Now I'm retired now, so I don't do it quite as much. But anyhow, um, what was interesting was yesterday we're kind of winding down. As I told you the day before, my son got married, and then we babysat my granddaughter after the wedding and through yesterday morning, about 11 o'clock. She slept here. She slept with my wife, and I slept on the couch because it just seemed more comfortable. Turned out my wife ended up curled up in a corner because this little girl sleeps all over the fucking bed. But I told her before she went to bed, I said, Grandpa's going to be out here. When you wake up, come wake me up. And so the next morning I'm sleeping, and next thing I know, I feel this pat on my stomach, and I open my eyes and just see this big round head right in front of my face. It was a wonderful scene. Nothing better, nothing more satisfying to me than seeing my granddaughter. And we had a great day. But after the day before and yesterday morning, I am tired. She's a runner. And I don't mean running away. She's just constantly moving, constantly doing things. She was extremely well behaved, and we had a great time. So now I'm resting. I got some time. As I'm recording this, people are in bed or away. So I can sit here by myself and do this podcast. So we're going to get down to it. I don't know how this is going to go. I don't have a ton of emails, but I have some. There are some stories there. And I'm thinking, how am I going to get an hour out of this? And then I said, if I don't get an hour, I don't get an hour. What the fuck? It's going to be close to an hour anyway. So we'll just do what we do and we'll see where it lands. And we'll wrap it up when we wrap it up. So, anyhow, the first email I have is coming to a friend of both of us, Old Soul. She says, Hey, Boomer, just finished listening to the podcast, and there are a couple of questions I'd like to respond to. There were some questions of her. One of the emailers asked about volunteering for the Harris Walls campaign. She can go to mobilize.us. Mobilize.us. I'm glad to see the enthusiasm. I'm sure she's going to meet like-minded people within the community and have loads of fun. If she goes to the websites and see a date and time, but the address says this event address is private, that's because they don't want MAGA showing up. It's a way to stay safe. She can still sign up for the event. She'll just need to enter her email and phone number. I hope she sends another email with an update. Also, if she has any other questions, send an email. If I don't know the answers, I will find out. And that's exactly what I said. If Old Soul doesn't know the answer, and most likely she does, if she doesn't know the answer, there's nobody better to be researching information. Next, she says someone sent an email saying she was missing $50,000 out of her 401k. I hope she's listening because something is seriously wrong with that. My suggestion is to take her statement to whichever bank she uses and have a banker go over the statement. There's no way $50,000 is missing from an unrealized capital gains tax because it's only for those with a net worth of 100 million or more. In fact, Democrats call it the billionaire minimum tax. In addition to that, Biden put the 25% tax on unrealized capital gains in his budget for the fiscal year of 2025. The 2025 fiscal year doesn't start until September 29th, so she can't be taxed on something when it's just a budget proposal. The budget has to be approved first. Now, I will say this too. I don't know that she was saying that she's lost that $50,000 because of that tax, but she did say she's lost the $50,000. And frankly, the stock market has done nothing but go up in the last 2 years with some dips occasionally, but then it pops back up. I'm just saying, regardless of the tax, if your investment has gone from thriving to a $50,000 loss, there is something very wrong. And it doesn't have anything to do with the Democrats or even necessarily the government. There's a problem there. And I'll be perfectly honest with you, people like to exaggerate when they try to make a point. So that woman telling me she lost $50,000 in her 401k, I don't believe you. I just don't believe you. And I know it doesn't matter whether I believe you or not, but that sounds like an exaggeration to make a point. Old Soul goes on to say also there are only about 9,850 people in the U.S. who have assets worth 100 million or more, and I'm sure she isn't one of them. She can go to factcheck.org, get all the information she needs. Post on social media has misrepresented the tax proposal. I can't prove it, but I think the source of the rumors came from millionaires and billionaires. They've been getting away with not paying their fair share for too long and don't think the rules apply to them. They pay little to none in taxes. Yeah, that's the thing. As I can see Republicans out there saying, oh, they're coming for you. They're going to take 25% of the profit in your home. They know that's not true. They are blatantly lying to your faces. And if that doesn't tell you something, well, then you're just not fucking listening. Old Soul continues, they have been living high off the hog, as my grandmother would say. They are used to using tax loopholes to hoard wealth and not pay taxes. This is the reason they pay Republicans not to approve spending packages with proposals that allocate funding to the IRS. It's the reason they are spreading lies about unrealized capital gains. If anyone sees this lie on social media, refer people to factcheck.org. We've got to work to stop this lie from spreading any further. We are living in a digital world of intentional misinformation and disinformation. It's important not to take anyone's word. We always have to check. We must be careful where we get information before repeating something we heard or saw on the internet. I hope the emailer can figure out what happened to her $50,000. I hope it's something that can be corrected because I'd hate to see her lose that kind of money. Thanks for what you do, Old Soul. Well, thank you, Old Soul. It's always a pleasure to have on the show. And actually, these emails, that's what caused me to put her on the show, is because she kept sending these intelligent and thoughtful emails. And I said, man, if she can write an email like that, she should be on the show. And once again, I was right. We got her on the show, did a great job, continues to do a great job. And now we try to have her on once a week. And I think everybody is just as grateful about having her on as I am. All right. Next one says, hi, Mike. Kamala Harris has trapped Donnie. Whether or not he debates her again will come down to his ego. If he keeps getting insulted for not going, his ego might force him to go. The more people talk about him being scared or losing to her, the last time will push him into a debate. I'm looking forward to her kicking his ass in another debate with 2 weeks till she kicks his ass in the election. Now, what this emailer is writing about, it was reported yesterday that Kamala Harris has accepted an invitation to debate on CNN for October 23rd. Now, there's been no word from Donald Trump, and actually toward the time just before recording this, I think I heard that Donald Trump said, no, I'm not going to do it. you're right. It's about 2 weeks away from the election. And if Donald Trump had any confidence at all, he would be there. He would be going to that debate, welcome that debate. But he knows that this is a bit of a trap. If he accepts it, he's going to get his ass kicked again. Now, he might complain that it's not on Fox News and it's unfair. Just remember, it's on CNN, and that's where he allegedly beat Joe Biden back in the day on CNN. These people aren't the finest and smartest folks, and they do lean Republican. So it's kind of a nice compromise for the Harris campaign. We'll debate you, not Fox, but we'll give you CNN. You've had some luck with them in the past, so why the fuck not do it there? Last report, though, Donnie's saying, nah, don't want to do it. Don't want to do it. Now, this emailer goes on. Did you see Liz Cheney say that they may need a new conservative party? We've talked about that option on the podcast. Guess she was listening to us. Hopefully, her campaigning against Ted Cruz will help flip Texas and give us Senator Colin Allred. Thanks, Eric. Now, Eric is a young man from Iowa that's on the show frequently, also does an excellent job, knows a lot of shit, always entertaining and educational to have him on the show. And what Liz Cheney is saying is interesting to me. I've said that before too. The Republican Party has, for all intents and purposes, been burned down by Donald Trump and all the MAGA fuck. There's very little that's redeemable in the Republican Party as we know it today. I mean, I wasn't a fan of the Republican Party prior to Donald Trump, but this one is a complete waste. It's not even Republican. It's not even conservative. It's strictly MAGA, and it strictly has an intention of overthrowing the country. Not surprising that a lot of people don't like that shit. And I've suggested when Donald Trump loses, you're going to get people stepping away from Donald Trump and MAGA. They're going to step away. But MAGA is still in control whether Donald Trump is there or not. Now, remember what I say, they're in control, but they aren't the majority of the Republican Party. There are a lot of cowards in the Republican Party, and while MAGA is a small percentage, they get led around by their noses, and I'm not sure why. Two things that have to happen after this election. Republicans have to decide what they're going to do. Are they going to continue to be cowards and let MAGA pull them around in spite of the fact that MAGA hasn't won an election since 2016? That would be the dumb move. I don't see them doing that. Do they kick them out, try to clean the place up, and build the Republican Party back up? I suppose you could, but they did a pretty good job destroying it. And since you have a divided party at this point, you have MAGA and you have the conservatives, you got to somehow come with a plan to unify that party if you believe you have any effect on any election in the future. That's one of the big problems Donald Trump has in 2024. He doesn't have a unified party. He has a divided party. And you just can't win as a Republican if you don't have full unity in your party. And that's one of the many reasons why I've said Donald Trump can't win in November. And the only obvious choice there is go back, start over, and come with a different party. It would almost have to be a different party because what's going on there now has been wildly unsuccessful. And I said this in one of the podcasts, maybe it was with Eric. Liz Cheney got kicked out, or she was voted out of her seat in the House of Representatives. And she did it. That happened because of her integrity and decency and honesty. A lot of people give her a lot of credit for that. As I think I was saying to Eric, you love Liz Cheney because she was honest, decent, and had integrity. I don't think that's extra credit. I think that's the very least we can expect out of politicians that representatives. So she was just doing her job, and I respect her for that because everybody else wasn't doing her job. But when she was elected or voted out of office, she didn't seem too upset after being on the J6 committee and such. And I said at the time, and I said with Eric, I said, she's just biding her time. Because when the Republicans or the Conservative Party has to regroup, when they have to do that, They need somebody to lead it. And who's there? Adam Kinzinger, Liz Cheney, all the other ones that think they're conservative. They stuck with Donnie Trump too long, and that stink is going to be on them for some time. The few Republicans that are clean of this MAGA bullshit, Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger. Adam Kinzinger retired from politics. That doesn't mean he won't come back. But Liz Cheney is standing there, standing proud. And if they're going to build another Republican Party, she may be the one to build it on. She's the one with the name. She's the one with the credibility. That's what I always thought. And it's interesting that she would say, maybe we need to start a new conservative party. She's a Cheney, so she knows what the fuck she's doing. She's announcing the idea of having another conservative party, and she's got her hand raised high to be the leader. And frankly, she'd be the only one to be the leader at this point. I've said before, a lot of Democrats like Liz Cheney because what she did on the January 6th committee, and she stood up to Donald Trump. Well, that's what she should have done. If you're a Democrat, you have no business voting for Liz Cheney at any time. Very conservative. She's against abortion. She was against the LGBTQ plus folks up until the time her sister came out. Then she kind of changed her tune. I'm not saying Liz Cheney is a bad person, but she's nowhere close to what liberals or Democrats think. She is contrary to all that. So just because she's honest and decent, I think that's the least we should expect out of our politicians. And she doesn't think anything like the Democrats. That's what makes it so interesting about what she's doing. She's as much as said, I don't believe in the policies of the Democratic Party, but I see voting for Donald Trump and risking democracy as a worse option. So she's betting against her own beliefs, but only to save democracy, and that is admirable. I'll give them that. That is admirable, and I appreciate her doing that. And also remember, she is the spawn of Satan, Dick Cheney. Just make sure you remember that. All right, the next one says, hi, Mike. I happened upon your reels on Facebook and your podcast in January of this year. Just wanted to say thanks because I really appreciate having your commentary and the commentary of the community that surrounds your podcast. It is refreshing to be able to hear people with different backgrounds who have the same common thoughts and ideals as myself. Who would have thought thinking everyone should have equal rights and the ability to thrive and prosper and protect the environment would be such a controversial idea? I also enjoy learning a few things now and then. I, like you, tend to be very direct and do not mind using curse words, as I often find them wonderful nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs to be used in conversation. Yeah, I'm not shy about cussing now and again, in spite some other people might think I shouldn't, but I don't listen to shit, so I'm going to keep doing it. And it sounds like you're the same. Also, I have very little patience for those who are presented with facts and refuse to acknowledge them as truth and adapting their own thought processes accordingly. I like to say it this way: I have a low tolerance for stupid, but I think we're on the same wavelength. I know Harris and Walz are going to win this thing in November, but it's still great to listen to your podcast just to keep me in a positive mindset. I live in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, which can be a very red county, but I'm enjoying seeing the Harris Walz signs pop up in people's yards. The commercials from the Republican side with all the sound bites and pasting random things together and not really providing the facts that support their ridiculous claims has been wearing me mentally now and then, and the podcast perks me right back up. Thanks so much for your efforts and all the efforts of your guest on the podcast. Kindest regards, Michelle. Well, thank you, Michelle. I appreciate you tuning in and the kind words. And you're absolutely right. If I've done anything right with this podcast, when I started it, I really wanted to have a co-host because it's so much easier to do something with somebody else. It makes the whole process of producing it and recording it a little easier. That's just producing and recording it. The problem is if you have a co-host, you have to make sure, first of all, that they're available when you need to do this. And since I do this every day, that would be a lot harder. You also have to deal with egos and differences of opinions. I don't mind people with a little ego and difference of opinions, but the problem would arise when people say, you know what I think we should do with this show? I would say, I don't care what you think we should do with this show. This is my show. We're going to do it this way. And I'm afraid that wouldn't last very long. I like working alone, because I've been in the radio business for a long time and I know what kind of fucks are in this business. So I said, well, I'd like to have people on the show. I don't want people selling podcasts or books. I want this to be informative and valuable. So that's when I struck on the idea of having listeners as guests. Now, when I chose to do that, people said, that's crazy. That's not going to work. There aren't people that can do a good job at this. And I said, I disagree. A lot of it has to do with the kind of audience you have. And I knew I had a good audience, and also how you handle that guest. There is a bit of a talent, with all due modesty. There is a bit of a talent in dealing with somebody you're interviewing or co-hosting with or talking to. You got to be able to draw stuff out of them, and you've got to make them feel comfortable once they're there. A lot of people get in their head about being on the air or something similar to that. So you got to build it into a conversation where they're not thinking about that. They're just thinking about the facts and the conversation. And I've always been able to do that. So I knew this would be okay. And somebody said, this is brilliant. I had no idea. Who would have known? And I explain it like this. In my early years in radio, in the early 80s, in my 20s, just kind of starting out, I was a producer for call-in talk shows. And I always loved call-in talk shows. From the time I was very little, I always listened to call-in talk shows because I thought it was interesting getting all these points of view and people calling and then somebody else coming along. And I thought to myself, well, those call-in talk shows work pretty well. And what I'm suggesting here is much like a call-in talk show, except for the fact that I have one caller that day. So I took a leap and gave it a try, and as luck would have it, it works out pretty well. So that's why I do it this way. All right, we have one more email. Thank you, or thanks for your reassuring and calm post and podcast. Please continue to list the facts as to why the Dems will win. The Dems should list facts, e.g., Haitians saved the auto business in Springfield. Love your show, Judy. That's what it comes down to, is facts. And staying calm is just something I've taught myself over the years. As a young man, I would be just as likely to fly off the handle, yell and scream and get excited and assume the worst. After a period of time, I realized that every time I do that, everything works out worse than I wanted to. So I thought, well, fuck, we'll try it the other way. And it took some time to be able to stay calm and do that. But once I did, I found out things work better. So this isn't a hard choice. I can go back to the way where it doesn't work well or continue doing the way it does work well. It's as simple as that. And I think a lot of people who listen to the news haven't learned that. I mean, most people get upset, get scared, get nervous, get angry, get whatever. It's a natural response from their emotions. And I get that. I got it in my family. Everybody in my family thinks the other way, not me. And I'm the weird one out here. So I tried to think what's the best way to get people to understand and maybe feel the way I do about my confidence in this election and some of the things going on with the Democratic Party. So I didn't really know what was going to happen with that. And I just did when you hear me do a TikTok, it's basically me informing and reassuring myself. The moment I see a problem, I have to figure it out. I look at it from all different angles. I think of the facts and I think of how can this really work out for me so I don't lose my shit up until that time. And so I just say it as I've thought it out. And I had no idea that there would be so many people that say, hey, thanks. You keep me sane. You keep me off the ledge. I feel better when I listen to you. That really wasn't my goal going into this. I didn't know really what I was doing or why I was doing it. I just did it because, this is the kind of thing I've done all my life. But it's been very very important to me, those people who call me and say, you make me feel better. It's like doing something on the internet and finding out you actually do somebody some good. It's a nice feeling. And I don't have to be, what's the word I'm looking at? So deliberate about it. It's just what I do. I don't have to change anything to help people. I just do what I do. So I'm very grateful for that opportunity. And it's a great compliment to me when people say, you made me feel better. And to Judy, in terms of the election, I still get people every day coming to me saying, I don't know why you're so confident. Donald Trump, boy, I'm hearing this, I'm hearing that. It's worrisome. It could be close. And what I have to remind them is all those things you just told me that are causing you to worry, they're coming out of the mouths of Republicans. They said it enough times, they said it loud enough that somehow, some way, you fucking believe it. And that's where it's got to stop. You can't listen to all the narrative, all the bullshit. You got to look at the facts. And they say, well, what are the facts? And I said, when I look at this election, here's what I see. Donald Trump is the absolute worst candidate for president in the history of this country. He has 34 felony convictions. He's been found liable of sexual assault. He's stolen classified documents, disseminated them to adversarial countries. He's incited an attack on the Capitol and insurrection, not to mention all the crazy shit he continues to do day after day leading up to this election. Most recently, the migrants are eating the cats and dogs. This guy can't help but fuck himself over. So you got that on one side, right? Other side, you've got Kamala Harris, a very competent woman, a very articulate woman, a woman that's been a district attorney, an AG, a U.S. senator, a vice president, and now a candidate for the presidency. She's been successful in every one of those things. She's got more support and enthusiasm behind her than any other presidential candidate in history. The polls are trending her way. Everything she does works. Everything Donald Trump does doesn't work. So if you take all the emotion and take all the fear tactics and the fear mongering out, those are the facts. And if you look at those facts, you can't see anything else happening other than Kamala Harris winning and winning big. So that's why I say she's going to win big. And I stand by that. I really do. I think it's not even going to be close. And I'm hoping against hope that that's the case. I think for the sake of the election and for the sake of this country, we need Kamala to win. And I have no doubt that that's going to happen. But we need her to win big, even to the extent of a landslide. May sound crazy to a lot of people by the way the media reports on this, but they don't always tell us the truth. Remember, they told us there would be a red wave in 2022, and there wasn't. They're trying to play the system so that you stay engaged and stay concerned and worried and scared so that you keep watching. They're not working for you. They're not trying to inform you. They're fucking manipulating you. They're playing you. We know this because they've done it over and over again since Donald Trump has come into office and gotten out of office, actually before then. So to buy into the bullshit, whether it become from the Republicans or the media by way of the Republicans, you're doing yourself a disservice. You're falling into the game that they want you to fall into. If you strip all that away, take the emotions out, take a look at the facts, it's very simple to come to the determination as to what's going to happen. Kamala's going to win. Kamala's probably going to win big. And when that happens, there's going to be a lot of media with egg on their face. Or will they? I think what you're going to see between now and November 5th, you're going to see the media leaning more to Kamala Harris. They see where this is going. And they don't want to get up to the final day before the election still saying, oh, this is too close for comfort. They don't want to do that because there's motherfuckers like me that are going to say, how is it you motherfuckers with all your resources couldn't see it, but this old white man sitting in his living room and some of you out there, how come we saw it and you didn't? That's going to be a hard question for them to answer. So they're going to want to buffer it a little bit by leaning that way. They want to say, ah, we saw something coming, but we were amazed by how big it was. They want that night to be explosive. They want it to be exciting. So you stay in touch the whole night. So when they come in, they say, yeah, looks like Kamala's doing it. And then all of a sudden, this big wave of Democrats come in and they're screaming and whooping it up and saying, oh my God, this is like nothing we've seen. Fact is, if you look at the facts, it's exactly what we've seen. And all the other bullshit is, in fact, just bullshit. All right. We're done with the emails. We'll look into some of the news stories and we'll be back right after this. We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Just me today. Talked about some emails in the first half. Now we'll talk about some of the news that's coming out in the past day or so. We know that Kamala Harris, is kind of digging or needling Donald Trump at this point, and it's probably going to get worse as time goes on into October. Kamala Harris pitched a second presidential debate against Donald Trump. Now, Kamala Harris has accepted an invitation from CNN to partake in a second presidential debate against Trump. That's according to campaign spokesperson Brian Fallon. Now, Trump's campaign has not yet commented on the proposal for the event, October 23rd at 9 p.m. in Atlanta, Georgia. Now, I will say this. There were some reports after this story came in that Donald Trump has already reacted to it. Not the campaign, Donald Trump himself, and said, yeah, I'm not going to debate. Why would I have to debate? Because I won the first one. Yeah, Donnie, you're a pussy ass bitch and you're scared and you should be. The emailer made a great point. He doesn't want to debate Kamala Harris because, as the kids would say, he don't want that smoke. And he'd be right not stepping into that. The last one was so devastating to him. And if he has a debate just 2 weeks away from the election, that won't go well. But as the emailer pointed out, because he's a narcissist, because he's a fucking goof, you tease him enough, you might bait him to come into it. He would go against his better advice and do it just to prove that he wasn't a pussy ass bitch. That's how important it is to Donald Trump. He doesn't like to be embarrassed. He doesn't like to look weak. And by him saying no to this one, he looks weak. It's a matter of how much people will talk about it. So you can guarantee that I'll be talking about it a lot, and hopefully other folks will too. Donnie, you're weak for not accepting this debate. You said you won the last one, so why not double down and win this one too? That's the least you could do. I know he'd want it on Fox News. Frankly, I don't think it mattered whether it be on Fox News or on C-SPAN. Kamala Harris will kick his ass regardless. Donald Trump doesn't know facts. He just spews bullshit. He has trouble staying on track, and he's easily triggered. Kamala Harris has his fucking number, whether it be on Fox or CNN. But as I said, CNN's kind of an interesting compromise, but because we remember the first debate where Donald Trump took on Biden, everybody's idea was that Donald Trump won that debate, which he did not. Granted, Joe Biden was slow and doddering, but everything he said makes sense and was clear to the point. Donald Trump, while he was more high energy and he was ranting and raving, everything he said made no sense. And that's been my trouble with that first debate. People were judging who won that debate based on performance, not on substance. There was no substance with Donald Trump because he didn't have a clue about what he was talking about. Joe Biden had a lot of substance, but he wasn't as lively as some people wanted. The whole take on that debate was absolutely ridiculous, and that was part and parcel for the reason Joe Biden had to step aside. I didn't like it at the time. I think Joe Biden would have beat Donald Trump, but the way it worked out, it seemed to work out well because now we have a new candidate that's in line with Joe Biden's thoughts and processes. Is a vice president to Joe Biden, so she's part of the same team, and she's garnered all kinds of attention and enthusiasm and support. And as I've said this before, this next election, the key factor here wasn't who was the most popular candidate, because Joe, had his issues. It was how many people hate Donald Trump, are tired of Donald Trump, and just cannot stomach voting for Donald Trump because they're terrified of what might happen should he become president. That is the bottom line of how this election is going to turn out. Donald Trump can't win. He didn't win in 2020. The MAGA folks didn't win in 2022, and it hasn't gotten better for them in 2024. But now we've got a double whammy for Donald Trump. Donald Trump is still hated and still feared in this country. And now we have Kamala Harris, who is incredibly popular. So that's why I lean more to a decisive win, dare I say, a landslide win. The facts point that direction. It's simple as that. Now, Trump said last week that he would not take part in any more debates with Harris after he was widely considered to be the loser in the September 10th debate hosted by ABC. At several points throughout that event, the vice president successfully derailed Trump's messaging. Prior to that, Trump had suggested he would be willing to debate Harris 3 times in total. Donald Trump should have no problem agreeing to this debate, Jen O'Malley Dillon, the Harris campaign chair, said in a statement. And that's true. Donald Trump is all about the debates up until this last one. And I made that prediction. I said, after this debate, we will not have any more presidential debates because Donald Trump can't handle getting his ass whipped more than once. He'll tell you that he won, but he knows in his heart he lost. And all the people around him know that if he does another debate, it can do nothing but hurt his chances in November. And let's be honest, at this point, he has no fucking chance. So why bury yourself even more? Like I say, if he gets shamed enough and he gets butthurt enough, he may show up, and that would be fucking entertaining. But before we'd even get to October 23rd, remember October 1st, there's supposed to be a debate between Tim Walz and JD Vance. I'm still questioning whether or not that will happen. I have a feeling that the Republicans will push JD Vance into doing it because they got to do something. Nothing's working. How could he hurt it more than he already has? Well, trust me, this is JD Vance. He can fuck it up. He's like Donald Trump, but younger. And I'm sure they're looking at JD Vance. Well, he's an Ivy League guy. He's a good talker. He should be able to beat out this public school teacher. Yeah, be careful because Tim Walz may be a public school teacher. He may be the country's dad. He may be down home and all that stuff. Motherfucker's smart too. He's very smart. He's the governor of my state. He got a lot of things through a very slim margin in the legislature based on his wiles. He's like Joe Biden in that sense. He knows what he's doing. He knows how to play the game. Other side of the coin, Donald Trump doesn't know shit for fucking shit. And neither does JD Vance. JD Vance might be an Ivy League educated guy, but he clearly doesn't know jack shit about politics. Doubling down about what's going on in Ohio. That's a stupid political move, but he continues to do it. The only reason he continues to do it is because Donald Trump tells him that he must. Now, even lawyers in his legal cases have advised Donald Trump on things that make sense. But Donald Trump says no because he knows better than everybody else. And for whatever reason, he co-opts these lawyers and JD Vance and other politicians to agree with him, even though they know it's going to go down in flames. For the life of me, I don't understand that. People will suggest they're afraid of Donald Trump. Well, look, Donald Trump's stock is dropping every day. There's going to come a moment in time when nobody's afraid of Donald Trump, and I presume that will be after the November election. At that point, he's worth nothing to the Republican Party. People will abandon him. The only thing about it is the likes of J.D. Vance and some of these other politicians, they're going to come to realize that they stepped aside, but they were too late in doing it. For the rest of their lives, the rest of their careers, they're going to be asked about their association with Donald Trump, who will become a pariah and the butt of most jokes after the election. That's not going to go well in their careers and their reputations. All right. Former President Donald Trump doubled down over the weekend on a bizarre all caps message to female voters that he posted to his Truth Social page just late Friday. You will no longer be thinking about abortion. What the fuck does that even mean? You're not going to be thinking about it. I'm going to make so much money. I'm going to be so successful. You won't even be worried about abortion. Look, motherfucker, you don't know shit about women. You don't know shit about good people. That abortion issue isn't going to go away. When they overturned Roe v. Wade just before the midterms in 2022, a lot of people thought, yeah, they're mad now, but they'll forget about it. No, nobody's forgetting about it. They didn't forget about it a few months later in 2022. And even at 2 years later, they're not going to forget about it. This is a serious problem. This affects women and men, Republicans and Democrats alike. It affects a lot of people. And a lot of people disagree with Donald Trump and the Republican Party. And moreover, we've got women suffering, struggling, even dying because of these draconian fucking laws that the Republicans want to force people into. Doctors are fleeing states because they can't continue to do their job. We won't be, the only way Donnie Trump can ensure that people won't be worried about abortion is if he became president, he forced the codification of Roe v. Wade. And we know that's not going to happen because he's been very proud of the fact that he overturned Roe v. Wade. Yeah, Donnie, once again, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Somebody should check Grandpa into a home. Now, we repeated the message nearly word for word during a rally Saturday afternoon in Wilmington, North Carolina, suggesting that women will no longer need to concern themselves with their reproductive rights under a second Trump term, even as recent polls show that support is flagging among women. Let's talk about great women because women have gone through a lot. Yeah, and you put them through it, you dumb motherfucker, Trump said after he'd been speaking for about an hour. He cited no evidence as he claimed women are now more stressed and depressed, less healthy, poorer, and less safe than they were 4 years ago. And that's probably true. Not because of the Democrats, it's in spite of the Democrats. It's but because of the Republicans in overturning Roe v. Wade. He goes on to say, I will fix all of that for that, women. I will fix all of that. And at long last, this national nightmare that we're going through will be over. Women will be happy, Trump said on stage. How do you intend to do that? You want to abolish abortion, make it illegal, send women and doctors to prison, but it's going to be okay. It'll be all over, and you will have taken care of it. Well, that's well and good, but you haven't explained how you're going to do that. And that's oh so typical of Donald Trump. It's going to be great. Don't know how I'm going to do it, but it's going to be great. He added, as he did on True Social, that if he wins, you will no longer be thinking about abortions. Well, why is that? Are you going to codify Roe v. Wade? Because that's the only reason they're not going to be thinking about abortions. But we know he's not going to do that. But then his message became a little confused. Trump gestured to his role in abolishing nationwide abortion rights in favor of allowing each state to enact their own laws. He thinks that's the big fix. Just make it not a federal thing and let the states handle it. That way you can't blame me anymore. Sorry, it doesn't work that way. Said let each state to enact their own laws, which is what happened when the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade in 2022. Yeah, but your buddies, your evangelicals, they want to make it a national abortion ban. Oh, I won't sign that. Yeah, you will, you sorry motherfucker. Just read the Project 2025, the one that you sent people to work on, the one that has your name in it 300 times. That's exactly what they want to do. You're saying whatever the fuck you have to say in order to get votes. And frankly and thankfully, people aren't that stupid. The lack of nationwide protections, however, has led some states to pursue extreme bans with very limited exceptions, leaving individual patients with slim or no options. So that's really what he's trying to do. He says, yeah, I overturned Roe v. Wade, but I just sent it back to the states. Everybody wanted that to happen, Republicans and Democrats. And I see the problem here is that I don't think he's smart enough to read or listen. I don't think his people are willing to give him anything but what he wants to hear. So in his mind, he thinks by overturning Roe v. Wade, the vast majority of people supported that. I think he really believes that. What he doesn't understand is 75% of this country support Roe v. Wade. So what he thinks is the exact opposite of what's true. And he's going to have his fuck around and find out moment on November 5th because he's wrong. And the people who will be happy because he's gone. And then we can work on getting Roe v. Wade codified. All right, we got something big coming up in about 4 days. Special counsel Jack Smith is expected to file an oversized brief filled with sensitive material in the criminal case Donald Trump faces in Washington, D.C. Smith on Saturday submitted a filing to Judge Tanya Chutkan asking for permission to send an oversized brief in the case, which involves allegations that the former president unlawfully attempted to interfere with the election he lost to Joe Biden in 2020. The expected brief will deal with the immunity issues stemming from the U.S. Supreme Court's ruling that found limited immunity for Trump in certain cases. Now, MSNBC legal analyst Lisa Rubin flagged the new filing over the weekend, saying, "Steel yourself." In a new filing, the special counsel tells Judge Chutkan its opening immunity brief will be roughly 180 pages, with roughly half devoted to detailed factual proffer and plenty of sensitive material warranting redactions, the attorney added. The defense opposes the special counsel's request to file an oversized brief and has asked to have until Tuesday at 5 p.m. to submit a written opposition, which will probably be denied. We are here because of Donald Trump. Jack Smith is just doing his fucking job. Now, Kyle Cheney, who's a senior legal affairs reporter for Politico, also reported on the upcoming brief, saying Jack Smith signals his brief on presidential immunity due Thursday will come in 180 pages. That is oversized. That is big. Now, legal analyst Allison Gill, better known as Mueller, she wrote, added that Jack Smith asked for permission to exceed the page limit for his immunity brief. It will be 180 pages, and as expected, they intend to file a substantial part of it under seal. Under seal initially. That doesn't mean we won't find out about it. We won't hear about it ultimately after it's gone into court. And that's the thing that Donald Trump and his team are frightened of. We've already heard a ton of evidence that specifically makes Donald Trump guilty in this case. This is more. This is new. This is worse shit. And it couldn't come at a worse time than a month and a half or a month before the election. So they're freaking out about it. Former prosecutor Barbara McQuaid said, "Not a surprise that Jack Smith's brief in the immunity case is lengthy. He plans to lay out the mountains of evidence against Trump." And this is all Trump's fault. He's the one that wanted to continually delay. He's the one that sought immunity. So, okay, you want that. Well, this is the result of it. You may not like it, but it's on your shit for getting this to happen. Former acting assistant attorney general Jeffrey Clark, who was indicted alongside Trump in the election subversion case in Georgia, responded to Rubin's note. "See, the journal lawfare people like Rubin are already building anticipation for Jack Smith's smear attack on Trump coming out on Thursday." Yeah, they're going to call it a smear attack, but the fact of the matter is this is a court filing. These are facts. This is evidence. Just because you say it's not true, you're pathological liars. We know better than that. It is fact, and you can whine and cry all you want, but you brought yourself here. You asked for this, and now you're going to get it. And you ain't going to like it. And it isn't going to fare very well for you when you do. Now, early yesterday, Donald Trump went on kind of a wild, scattered shot rant that began with him attacking HBO's real time host, Bill Maher, and then spread to MSNBC host Stephanie Ruhle and columnist Brett Stevens. It's funny, we report on Donald Trump going on a rant on True Social as news. That's like just another fucking Saturday night or a Tuesday night or a Wednesday night. Now, hours after the three appeared on Real Time Friday, the former president took to his True Social platform to lash out at them before complaining they were talking about him. And this is what Donald Trump said. It's the kind of thing he always says. It's boring and it's getting tiresome. The ratings challenged Bill Maher on his increasingly boring show on HBO is really having a hard time coping with Trump derangement syndrome. I always hate that when they say that. The only deranged motherfuckers are Donald Trump and the people that support him. He is a befuddled mess, sloppy and tired, and every conversation with B and C list guest seems to start with or revert back to me. This week he had a dumb as a rock bimbo Stephanie Rule from MSDNC on the show, along with Trump hating loser Brett Stevens, who seemed totally confused and unsure of himself, very much like Maher himself. I love how he makes these comments and these observations and thinks people think people don't see what the truth is. I'll give you an example. I won the debate. I won it easily. No, motherfucker, 67 million people saw you get your ass kicked. So you can say that all you want, but people just laugh at you because you're a flat out pathological liar. He then went off in a different direction, writing, Stephen should find himself another line of work because I'm driving the failing New York Times absolutely crazy, and it's very hard, perhaps impossible, for a writer to write well of me without suffering the wrath of degenerate editors who, with a push from the top, have gone insane. I always like this when he says, well, he's just a Trump hater. Well, join the fucking crowd. 75% of this country hates you. I hate you. I'm proud to be in that group. He goes on to say they apologized to their readers in 2016 for their complete and total miss, and they'll do it again in November. The failing New York Times is badly run newspaper that has totally lost its way. Put it to sleep, he added. What he's basically saying here is they're saying bad shit. You can't believe it because it's bad news for me. Facts are facts. They're reporting the facts. Bill Maher said basically, after all the things he's done, I've always said he's not done yet. But after this eating pets thing, he's done. Bill Maher said he's done. Now, I'm not sure if I'm a fan of Bill Maher. Sometimes I am, sometimes I'm not. He's a guy he's a comedian doing a show, and it's a good show, but we can't take for what he says any more credible than any one of us. So, we'll see. I personally agree with him. I don't think that's the thing that finishes him. It's just added to the pile of many things that caused Donald Trump to be done. All right. Now, it's interesting. I mentioned Donald Trump was in North Carolina, and I find this interesting. Um, you remember the other big news story earlier this week. Mark Robinson, he's a lieutenant governor of North Carolina. He is running for the governorship of the same state. He's definitely a Trump humper. He's definitely goofy. But in the last week, he actually fucked himself over, like Republicans tend to do. It came out that Mark Robinson was posting on a porn site. Now, you would think that would be enough, but that isn't the real problem. It's what he was posting. He posted that he saw himself as a black Nazi. That's always good. He was posting that he believed and supported the idea of slavery, even though he's an African American man. He disrespects women. He acknowledges that he's a perv. None of this is good for the upcoming election for the governorship. Donald Trump came out and said, oh, this is a wonderful guy. This is a wonderful guy. He's better than Martin Luther King, which is absolutely ridiculous. So Donald Trump fully and completely supports Mark Robinson. Here's the interesting thing. Donald Trump goes to North Carolina last night. Why did he go there? Well, first of all, the Republican Party in North Carolina wanted Mark Robinson to step aside because they knew this was not going to be good for them in the gubernatorial election, but he wouldn't do it. The North Carolina Republican Party wanted him gone, but he didn't leave. But the National Republican Party is nervous about Mark Robinson too. North Carolina is a pivotal state in the upcoming election. They'll play a role in the Electoral College. So even the national Republicans are saying Mark Robinson's got to step aside. Got to step aside. And of course, Mark Robinson said, nope, not going to do it. So what do? How do they fix that? How do they tend to that problem? Well, Donald Trump's always said it. Only I can fix it. So Donald Trump goes to North Carolina to give a speech to fix it all. Didn't quite work out that way. Maggie Haberman with the New York Times reported Friday that people close to the former president had advised him to distance himself from Robinson. He didn't even mention Lieutenant Governor Robinson, the guy who he thinks is better than Martin Luther King. Not once did he mention him. He's trying to be a distraction, take the attention off of Mark Robinson and go there by showing him in all his glory. Didn't really work out that way. Trump had previously gone as far as to compare the embattled Republican to MLK Jr., as I mentioned. During his rally in Wilmington, Trump criticized Vice President Kamala Harris, vowed to lower prices, and promised to protect the Second Amendment. He did not mention Robinson, who was absent from the rally before, during, or after the event. Now, wouldn't you think if you've got a rally in North Carolina, wouldn't you think the candidate running for governor, whom you support fervently, would be there? Yeah, apparently they're ashamed of Mark Robinson now, and Donald Trump doesn't want to talk about him now. A guy he said was better than Martin Luther King. Fucking funny, isn't it? CNN reported this week an email account linked to the North Carolina Republican had been linked to a pornographic website in which the candidate had referred to himself as a black Nazi, praised some content for featuring transgender women with penises. Many of Robinson's comments were gratuitously sexual and lewd in nature. They were made between 2008 and 2012 on Nude Africa, a pornographic website that includes a message board. The comments were made under the username Mini Soldier, a moniker Robinson used frequently online. Interesting thing about this, when confronted with these posts, Mark Robinson said, "Oh, it's probably AI." Yeah, well, that's fine, Mark. But in 2012, nobody had heard of AI before. It didn't really exist. So I don't think that's the problem there. Robinson has denied he left the comments, which were posted more than a decade ago and have been since deleted, of course. Haberman told CNN Friday night that sources close to Trump had told her he intended to put distance between himself and Robinson by Saturday's rally. I don't even know him. I never met the guy. I don't believe anything he says. We've heard that before. I think it's going to look like saying the minimum, where most people who have talked to him said they expect him to say in some version of "I hardly knew the guy." As we know right now, Democrats are airing an ad tying Trump to Mark Robinson. And I don't know if that might make him say something different if he would want to condemn it or try to distance himself. See what they're doing, they're sucking him in to get him to talk about it, even though his intention is to not talk about it. So they're poking the bear, as we call it. But his team is certainly looking to put a lot of miles between Donald Trump and Mark Robinson, and had been I should note that leading up to this, because this has been discussed before, this swirl of rumors around him for some time, a lot of concerns around him for some time. Trump got behind him anyway. Yeah, even before Donald Trump got behind him, people said, "Yeah, this guy's goofy. This guy's a problem. Don't get behind him." But of course, you get somebody like Mark Robinson that pats Donnie on the butt and says you're a genius. He'll support fucking anybody that does that. And in spite of the advice, he got behind Mark Robinson, and big surprise, it bit him in the motherfucking ass. Interesting. My goodness. Like I've always said, just let Donald Trump talk and he will fuck himself over each and every time. That's just who he is. Um, okay. Last story, and then we're going to wrap things up. We know we've got this potential shutdown coming up at the end of the month. And the reason there's even any talk of the shutdown is because Donald Trump wants it. He thinks somehow that's going to help him in the election. Somehow it's going to make the Democrats look bad. But anybody with an average or above intelligence knows that's not the case, including Republicans. If there is a shutdown, the Republicans are going to take the heat. They're going to take the beating. In spite of that, the fact that they know that, Donald Trump has been pushing this on them. And of course, they just get in lockstep and do whatever Donald Trump says. It seems like they're pushing back a little bit now on Donald Trump. And I'm sure Donnie's not going to like this. House Republicans are overwhelmingly dismissing former President Trump's call for a government shutdown in the absence of a proof of citizenship voting bill being signed into law, a public break from the GOP presidential nominee in the lead up to November. A group of Republicans this week rejected a bill that combined a 6-month continuing resolution with the Trump backed voting bill, tanking the legislation in a move that thwarted Speaker Mike Johnson's funding strategy. Now, as the Speaker prepares to defy Trump's wishes and stage a vote on a clean 3-month stopgap, rank and file Republicans are expected to back it, balking at the former president's request. Republicans almost universally support the voting bill, but they say pushing the issue so intensely that it results in a shutdown would backfire on the party. No question. Everybody wants to go home and campaign, and there are some, particularly, they want to go home and campaign because they're in really tough races, said by Representative Gary Palmer, a Republican from Alabama. See, that's the other thing. They can't go home until they get this fucking thing done, and they're running for reelection. And if they're working on this funding bill, they can't go back in the last month and try to campaign to keep the jobs that they barely do now anyway. The Alabama Republican, who currently serves as a policy chair of the House GOP conference, also pointed to national security concerns. A government shutdown would embolden our enemies further to undermine our reliability and respect among our allies, Palmer said. So I don't think a shutdown is good for anybody. Trump for weeks has urged the House Republicans to pair government funding with a conservative voting bill. Johnson fulfilled that request with his opening salvo in the government funding talks. He did what Donald Trump said. It failed miserably, and now they're ready to just do what they have to do. This is what I've said all along. People have reached out to me. I'm worried they're going to shut down the government. No, they're not. That would be the dumbest thing the Republicans could do. This happened 3 times in the last 12 to 18 months. And each time I told you, the last minute, last day, they will come up with some kind of extension or a resolution, and we'd be done with it. It happened in all 3 times because there's nothing to gain for the Republicans to shut it down. And the only people that want to shut down is Donald Trump and the MAGA fucks. And in spite of MAGA thinking they're really powerful, they're only a fraction of the Republican caucus. Up until recently, the majority of the Republican caucus just did whatever MAGA said. And why, I don't know. It is the most cowardice thing I've ever seen. But now we're getting close to the election. Now they're seeing what's likely going to happen. And you could almost ensure a landslide and a lot of down ballot people losing on the Republican side if they shut the country down. In spite of what Donald Trump is saying, we know he's a dumb fuck. We know he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. They aren't going to shut the country down. The former president, however, amped up his request last week, urging Republicans to shut the government down if they did not secure absolute assurances on election security. He reiterated that position Wednesday, hours before the House rejected the 6-month stopgap plus SAVE Act. See, here's the thing. They want to pass a law that non-citizens can't vote in the election. It's already a law. It's redundant. So the question is, why do they want to do that? They want to create more chaos. And then they might say, well, we just passed the law, so we need to check everybody again, causing more chaos and slowing everything down. That's how they've always done everything. There's no point in passing the SAVE Act if we already have a law that says the same thing. It's only there to create more chaos and more confusion by the Republicans, and the Democrats just aren't having it. He said if the Republicans don't get the SAVE Act and every ounce of it, they should not agree to continuing resolution in any way, shape, or form. Trump posted that on Truth Social, adding in caps, be smart, Republicans. You've been pushed around long enough by the Democrats. Don't let it happen again. Remember, this is a Biden-Harris's fault, not yours. No, sorry, it is yours. It is your fucking fault. Trump's pleas contrasted with the strategy among GOP lawmakers who saw the CR plus SAVE Act as an opening offer and a way to play into Trump's past false stolen election claims and repeated skepticism of the voting system, but knew it would not be the measure that prevented a shutdown. Even if the lower chamber passed it, the Democratic controlled Senate and the White House, which point out that it is already illegal for non citizens to vote and express concern about burdening eligible voters, nobody would have ever accepted it. And that's exactly the case. And that's exactly what happened. So if you were worried about the government shutdown, I told you a while back, I'll tell you again, it's not going to happen. Not even the Republicans are dumb enough to get something like that done. All right, we are going to wrap up the Rational Boomer podcast for this Sunday. I want to thank you for taking the time to join us. I hope you have a great day, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow.